Hello, I'm Charles Dickens. Welcome to the Christmas Carol book tag. Ha ha! Full disclaimer, no idea why I decided to give Charlie that voice, but here we are. Hi everyone, it's Jenny. Welcome back to my channel. How are you all? Oh, this bobble's going to be annoying. Anyway, I am festooned in festive gear. Festooned is probably the wrong word, but we're gonna deal with this. See how long this hat's going to stay on. But this is a tag that I thought was really fun and festive and was created by Lauren Wade. I will link her original tag down below and I will list the questions if you so desire to do this yourself. So, let's get on with it, shall we? Question 1 is Ghost of Christmas Past, a book that was a childhood favourite. So for me, it unquestionably had to be Matilda by Roald Dahl, who was my favourite author when I was a kid, but this was my favourite story because it's about a girl who reads. So I really saw myself in her, and then it had the extra magic of her having these powers. It's got a really good villain. I love the film of it as well, and also the character Miss Honey, who is a nice character. Her name is Jenny, so it was all winning for me, taking all the boxes. And I also loved Bishop's Potter so much. I loved the TV show of it. I recently rewatched that with my sister and had a wonderful nostalgic time, and I also loved the Bradley Hedge stories. I don't hear people talk about these as much as Bishop's Potter, or at all really, but they were just beautifully illustrated stories about mice in these gorgeous outfits, and my favourite was The Secret Staircase. Any stories about kind of hidden houses or secrets like that I just loved as a kid. Question 2 is Ghost of Christmas Present, a book that you have read recently that you think will become an all-time fave. So, sticking with the Christmas theme, I just read J.R.R. Tolkien's Letters from Father Christmas. Oh my goodness, this warmed my little cold 2020 heart. It's so beautiful. I mean, look at the end papers, and it is literally just a collection of all of the letters that he wrote to his children from 1920 to 1943. So it's got the letters written out, as well as having the pictures that he drew and the copies of the original letters, and it's so beautiful and funny. So it isn't just about Father Christmas. He also has this great helper called the Great North Polar Bear, who's very funny, and the amount of detail he goes to, because Father Christmas has one kind of shaky handwriting, and then the polar bear has another kind of handwriting, and he writes with a thick pen because he has a big paw, so he kind of butts in and writes funny little ad-libs on Santa's letters. And then later on there's an elf that writes in another different handwriting, and it's just so beautiful, and I will treasure this. But in terms of non-Christmas books, I'm not going about it very long, but Girl, Woman, Other by Benedict Evaristo, favourite book of this year. I know this will stay with me forever and I will read it and love it again. So that's nice. Question 3, surprise surprise, is The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, a book that is going to be a new release I'm excited about, and normally I know nothing about this, but I actually have pre-ordered the book. It is called The Prophets by Robert Jones Jr., I believe, and it is a story about 2 slaves in America who I think are gay and in a romance, and about their fear of being discovered and that kind of thing. And it just sounded like an amazing premise and something that I hadn't read before. I've read quite a few books set in this period of slavery in America, but nothing queer, so I thought that sounded phenomenal. So I'm very, very excited, and I really hope it lives up to the hype. Question 4 is Bah! Humbug, a book that everyone else loves and you don't get the hype. Now listen, I could do a whole rant video on this, but it is The Finkler Question by Howard Jacobson, which somehow won the Booker in 2010. And I, bought it, and it was one of those books that it came with 3 pages of literary reviews and praise saying how great this book was, and then I read it and it was the most boring, self-centered thing I'd ever read. It's like, man has existential crisis because he's attacked when he walks home, and he's just really insecure, and the protagonist is just absolutely insufferable, and it just ends in a rubbish way as well, and I could not understand why it won. Furious. Question 5 is Bob Cratchit. Oh, I always want to say that like in the Muppet Christmas Carol. Sorry. An old dependable that you always recommend. So, recently I have been recommending a lot Old Baggage by Alyssa Evans, which is a fantastically entertaining, funny, witty, clever book about Mattie, who is a woman who was a suffragette, but it's like late 20s at this point, so she's trying to channel those energies into some other enterprise, and it's just so good and so brilliant, and I haven't heard many people talk about this actually, so yes, that one. And then also in terms of non-fiction, I have recommended Mudlarking a lot by Lara Makelum. Just a really interesting look at London history from a more, in a way, personal perspective, because it is a memoir, but then also a kind of really wide perspective, because it talks about through the objects that she finds there, a lot of the history of London, and I just thought it was fascinating and really, really much better than I expected it to be as well. I thought it was a bit niche, but actually I think so many people can enjoy that book. Question 6 is Tiny Tim, a book that you think is underhyped and deserves more love. So I again have talked about this a lot of times on my channel, but it is Hotel Silence by a Icelandic woman. I'm not going to butcher her name here, but it's just a really beautiful story, and I heard about it from Lena Norm's channel, and I've heard literally no one else talk about it since I read that book. So I would really love it if more people read that. And it's translated fiction, and I know I don't read much translated fiction, and I think most people could read more translated fiction. So there's a good recommendation for you that I really, really want more people to read, because it's also, I think, a really good book to read for now, because it's a hopeful book. We all need that, don't we? Question 7 is Today? Why, it's Christmas Day! What book gets you in the Christmas mood? So, I very recently read this lovely little book, which is Another Night Before Christmas by Caroline Duffy, who's done quite a lot of these poetry illustrated Christmas themed books, and the illustrations are lovely. They're basically just monochrome and all these different patterns, and it's taking the original poem, Twas the Night Before Christmas, and sort of putting on and spinning it, so that's lovely. And then also I love the short story collection Christmas Days by Jeanette Winterson, which has recipes in as well, and I wouldn't normally read recipes, but they are really worth reading actually. The way she writes them is just very engaging and interesting and funny, and it's nice because I can just read one story and dip in and out of it. And then a book that isn't Christmassy, but I think is going to become a tradition, that I read on Boxing Day last year, is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse by Charlie Maxey, and I will definitely read this again this year around Christmas. It's just beautiful, and oh boy did it make me weep, but it's just so flippin' pretty and lovely, and oh, highly recommend you follow him on Instagram, by the way, if you like this book. More of the same there. Question 8, Muppet Christmas Carol, what is your favourite film adaptation of a book? So, tough one. I would have to say high up there is Atonement. I think that is beautifully captured. I love the book. I think the film's pretty damn good as well. I thought the casting's excellent, etc. And I also adored the most recent adaptation of Emma. I felt so warm and fuzzy when it gets to the end, and I went to see it twice in the cinema, and I think part of the reason I also love that is because that came out just before COVID hit, so I sort of, you know, associate that with a pre-COVID time when things were okay and I could go to the cinema to see that film twice, and again, just the music, the costumes, the acting, everything, it's so delightful, I think is the word. But then I also need to say that without fail, every Christmas Eve, me and my family will watch the Muppet Christmas Carol, because that obviously is the best adaptation of certainly Dickens, if not any book ever. And it isn't really Christmas until we've watched Muppet Christmas Carol by candlelight. It's got to be done. So let me know if you're going to do this tag, or if you have done this tag before, and what Christmas films / books you like to read or watch. And yeah, this is fun. Probably very rambly as usual, but that's me. So, Merry Christmas, and I will see you soon. More bookish shenanigans. Goodbye!